Hi, my name's Megan, and my brother and I, Stan, run Sunnyside Up Pastures, where we make food for people who care. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Glad to see you. You're here hopefully because you care about the environment, about your health, about your family, about animals. That's why we're here. Back in the day, in March of 1935, a big dust storm hit Washington, D.C., and this started the big movement of soil conservation. And this dust storm came from the well-known Dust Bowl, which the Dust Bowl came by because of unresponsible farming practices, and people knew that a change needed to be done. Unfortunately, the government listens to big companies and big money. And so a lot of practices are still done today, like chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and tilling. Tilling and plowing is a practice that kills unwanted plants and makes the ground easier to work in and to plant in. References to plowing fields can be traced back thousands of years ago. It's been going on for a long time. There are some civilizations that haven't been destroyed by the plowing and tilling and working the soil, and that's because their farmers would take waste from cities and bring it back to their farms to fertilize it. These good stewards were very meticulous about giving back to the soil instead of constantly taking from it and pillaging the nutrients from it. Today's Amish communities are a great example of this. They strive to give back to the soil by never leaving worked fields bare for very long, and they use natural fertilizers to get those nutrients back and to feed that ecosystem that's in the soil. In the 40s, the no-till movement was started, and a big leader and researcher in this field, no pun intended, is the Notill Institute in Pennsylvania. They have spent over 70 years researching and helping others find better ways to farm. And as farmers saw the Notill Institute succeeding and thriving and getting really good yields, they have followed this no-till movement, and it grew quite a bit, especially in like the Dakotas and those surrounding areas. A lot of farmers are no-till, which is really cool. Some of the people that Stan and I look up to in this regenerative agriculture field are following these practices. But here in Utah and in the West, so we haven't been so quick to catch on to this, and there has been a lot of change towards the no-till movement. And many here in our valley still kind of look at us a little weird as our fields are untilled and they still have plant life in them, and then we plant more stuff into it, and then as our cover crops are growing, we come in and plant our grains still into it. It's really beautiful, and it's really fun and enjoyable to be able to just see the soil always green or always having plant life. It's much more natural, and it's wonderful to see. The benefits of cover crops are very numerous. It reduces your need for herbicides and other pesticides because the cover crops will shade out a lot of unwanted plants, and it adds that competition. And then when you have multiple plants going on, pests aren't as a big a problem because there's pest confusion, and we've talked about this before, where if there is a monocrop, there are pests that will focus on one crop. And so after a couple of years of just one crop, those pests know, hey, there's food over here, and so they come in. But if there are multiple crops, even just 3, they're gonna come in and they're gonna sniff this plant, which maybe, let's say it's hairy vetch, and like, oh, that's not what I want. And then like, oh, this is peas, that's not what I want either. They're like, oh, what's going on? And this also provides more of a habitat for beneficial insects like ladybugs, praying mantises, spiders, certain wasps, and other insects like this that come in and eat the aphids and beetles, the bad beetles, and weevil and different stuff that causes a lot of problems in crops. Cover crops also improve yields by enhancing soil health. They cut fertilizer costs because when you have a variety of plants in, instead of one plant always taking nitrogen, maybe this plant actually gives back nitrogen and there's more than just nitrogen. You know, all these different vitamins and minerals, the plants work together to give and take and provides much more of a healthy soil. And so that cuts down fertilizers costs, especially chemical fertilizers, because those aren't really doing anyone any good. There's a lot of, and this is a little bit later, but there is a lot of pollution that comes from chemical fertilizers because a lot of the fertilizers that we put down, the plants actually can't take it up because the plants only get the nutrients by the bacteria and other things that are in the soil. And if those bacteria are dead, then the plants can't get their nutrients. And so when these fertilizers that we put on don't go in and then it rains or flood or even just irrigating, that pushes it down into water systems, and then we have a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's not good. If you didn't know that, that is very not good. You also get more added value from a field. So last year, for example, we had, I always forget this, we had barley on one side and we'll say oats on the other side. But we had planted triticale before that. And so we were able to harvest the grain, and that was sold for seed. And then we were able to keep some of the straw for our own cows, and then we're able to bring the cows on during the winter, and that provided feed for our cows for I think a month or more of them grazing through. So we got money from the seed, and then we had feed for our cows. And so you get a lot more than just one benefit when you have cover crops on your soil. It also prevents soil erosion because you have the roots and plant life. So with wind and with water and other things, it's not able to grab that soil and take it away because it's held there by the plant material and by the roots. And with all that cover, it also helps with soil moisture, and it reduces the evaporation from the sun taking that. So if it's just bare and it's just crops, and so you have your crops here with kind of bare soil here, it's a lot of area for the sun and heat to get to and then evaporate. And so it helps with water usage, which is a pretty big deal here in Utah, because especially where we're in a 3-year drought right now, and we need to find ways to conserve water and use less water. And I guess even use water more wisely than what we're doing right now. So I talked about the wind erosion. You know, the wind can't come and pick up the soil when there's cover crops and plant material. So early spring is a really popular time for farmers to come in, take their plows, their tills, their schmeisers, and all different things, and work the field and really get it ready for spring planting. And once these fields are laid bare, a lot like this video here, this video is a field where it's just been plowed. It's not ready for planting it, but it's been plowed. So all that's worked up, and so all of the bacteria and soil life is dead at this point because there's no moisture, there's no food, there's nothing. It's gone. And so with these fields laid bare and then it's worked and seeds are below the surface, it can take weeks to get enough plant material and roots down deep to hold on to that soil to keep it from going anywhere with nature, with wind and water and different stuff. And so during this limbo time of waiting for those plants to grow, the soil is often victim to wind gusts. And just last week, we had wind gusts that were reported up to 50 miles an hour. And so I was out, we turned off our sprinklers because, you know, as the sprinklers are going, the wind is pushing the water and it's not watering where we need it to be. So there's no reason to waste water and to kill any of the plants there. So we turn off sprinklers. And as I was doing that, I couldn't see the mountains. And I thought maybe it was a storm or wind or something. And then I realized, as you can see in this video, that's dust, that's soil, that is from farming and even just the desert. That's dust just being blown everywhere. That is very reminiscent of the Dust Bowl era, and this is a warning sign that things need to change. So there's a lot more that we could talk about and go more in depth with with this and with food production and so forth, but we're gonna stop there and maybe talk about more things later. And I first just really want to thank you, because there's a lot of change that needs to happen, but it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen without your help. And since you're here already watching this video, that means you're already on the path to changing the world, or at least your community. And I want to thank you for that, because as you care about where your food is coming from, and you're supporting farmers like us that are trying to do better and be better, then the food production is going to be better. Any change that's ever happened in the world started with someone who cared enough to do something about it. So thank you. Thank you for joining me in this video. And if you have any ideas or questions or thoughts, put them down below in the comments, and I will definitely respond to you, because I really enjoy interacting with the farm family, with you guys. So, all right, I will see you next time.